Good afternoon, or I should say good morning. Well, technically it's good luncheon. It's 12 o'clock, noon. I guess that's considered afternoon in some places. But wherever you are, thank you so much for joining me. This is the lovely podcast, The Endurance of Labor Laws. I'm your lovely host, Lesley Sullivan, and today is episode 58. And we're going to take a look at glass, molders, pottery, plastics, and Allied Workers International Union. But first of all, I want to give a big shout out to my listeners, so let me go to my list here because you guys are awesome. I'd love to see you here online. So a big shout out to Washington, British Columbia, Florida, Indiana, Oregon, New York, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania. Hey, Pennsylvania, how you doing? Good to see you. Texas, our lovely neighbor to Oklahoma, and then Virginia. What's cool is that I can see how many people are listening from all over the world, and it's really neat to see like the states when they move up and when they surpass somebody else. It's almost like a horse track race, You're just cheering on Virginia or Texas or Pennsylvania, and you're like, just go for it kind of thing. So it's good to see you guys. I love it. But let's go ahead and take a look here at this international union. So because it's international, that means they have locations in multiple places. So it was founded in 1842. They are headquartered in Media, Pennsylvania. They have locations in the United States and Canada. As of 2013, they have 27,864 members. Their key person is Leo W. Gerard. He is international president, and he would be an international president because they have locations in Canada and the United States. And that concerns me right off the bat when it is an international union because it makes me think the United States is just being used for money because Canada, they don't have as much population as we do. They don't make as much money as we do. And it's because they don't have a large population like the United States, but also they are socialists. And what it reminded me of was I remember working this one job. I guess you could say I was working at a software company, but I worked at the front desk. I took a job as a receptionist with the plan and the promise that I would be promoted into an engineering department because I was going to be working as a technical writer, but they were going through some kind of transition within the company. And then lo and behold, we get bought out and merge. Mergers are a joke. It's really just a buyout, whoever has the more money or the most money. And then the layoffs started. So my job was put on a freeze. So what's interesting is that, I worked as a front desk receptionist. So I was the person that would be the first individual that you would meet for this business. And I just want to give a big shout out to receptionists and anyone that works in an office position where you deal with the public because, sometimes we get treated like dogs. We really do. And it's horrible because, what's interesting is that whenever someone disrespects the receptionist, I don't do business with them. Because if they only think they have to be nice to the people that make more money, then that tells me I don't want to work with them. I don't want to do business with them. But anyway, I was working as a front desk receptionist. And I got bored up there, so I started reading books. And I told them, I said, you got to give me something to do up here. My brain is turning to mush. It's horrible up here. Give me something to do. Because I wasn't hired to do receptionist work. I was actually hired for way more money and way more opportunity. So I actually started doing more work up there at the front desk. I was actually helping with licenses and software, technical writing, things like that. So just FYI, just because there's a woman sitting at a front desk and she is seen as the receptionist and she's answering phones and things like that. She's not an idiot. She's not a moron. She actually does a lot of work behind the scenes. Like basically the receptionist is the nucleus of your company. Most of the time the president or the CEO doesn't have a clue what's really going on. If you want to know what's going on in your company, talk to your receptionist. They'll tell you. They hear everything. Everything. Because we're up at the front and we see who comes, who goes, and we hear the conversations, which a lot of them I did not care to hear. And I remember this one job I was cursed at, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me, you're gonna curse at me because you think I'm below you? Kind of thing. Like, it just really shows you how people view different types of labor and like social status. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Look, a job is a job. Like, I don't care what the job title is. I show up to work, I do my job, I do it well. Well, here's where I was going with this story was I was working at this company and I was working as a front desk receptionist and we had this huge TV in the lobby and I hated it. It was just constant ruckus, constant racket, and I was forced by my boss, who was an idiot. She was not very kind. In fact, she was a liar and she was horrible. But anyway, I was forced to keep the television on, and the only channels that we were allowed to have it on was the news. And I hated it because I don't like watching the news. Especially during that time because Obama was in office and the news just wouldn't shut up about him, whether it's good, bad, ugly, whatever. I'm a Republican capitalist, as you know, but I think regardless of who's president, you need to be kind and respectful. Yes, you should report the news. Yes, you should report fraud and things going on that are not that great because we, the American people, have a right to know. But I just got sick and tired of the bickering and the bantering on these news stations. So, I couldn't stand watching MSNBC or, what was the other one? Oh, Fox News. Oh my goodness. And I am conservative, but these people are like conservative on caffeine or Red Bull or cocaine or something or methamphetamine. I mean, they are crazy on that news station. On the hour, every hour, it's like there's always a panic. Like news alert, news alert. I'm just like, yeah, you work on a news station. Could you please be calm and not create hysteria? That would be great. But anyway, I remember this one news story that really broke my heart in regards to Canada. There was this young girl. She's probably in her early 20s or mid-20s. She was fighting cervical cancer. And she had already had to have her head shaved and she was doing chemotherapy. And here's the thing. She was denied a pap smear repeatedly for years in Canada where she lives, where she's from. And because she was denied medical treatment, cervical cancer started and grew, and now she's fighting for her life. And so I don't even know if she's alive anymore, but she had to come to the United States to get medical treatment. Because socialized medicine only cares about the young and the healthy. But let's say you're young and you're not healthy and cancer starts to grow, something like that. Then they kind of just throw you away. Like they didn't want to pay for her cancer treatment, all this stuff. It was really quite sad. And I felt so sorry for her. And my mouth just dropped because we hear great things about Canada, how great a country it is. Oh, it's beautiful. It's large. There's a lot of space up there. And, supposedly Canada is better than the United States. I'm like, no, it's not, because Canada is known, at least we have known the United States for years, that if ever there's a draft or if you don't want to serve in the military, you can just go to Canada because that's where cowards go. Like if you don't want to sign up for the draft, which is sad to say that, but that's just what Canada is known for. Because Canada is not known for fighting. Like the United States is known for fighting. Like we're the ones that are kind of like the policemen of the world, right? Which I can't stand that because you'd think that other people would want to defend themselves, but I guess not. But anyway, I just remember this story about this girl. I thought, how sad is that? Like she should have been getting pap smears since she was 18 and get them every year. But unfortunately, within socialized medicine, what they try and do is they try and limit health care every chance that they can get. They just want to limit it. So what they do is they find these studies that say, oh, you don't need a pap smear every year. You can just get one every 3 years. Now it's every 5 years. Now it's every 7 years. I'm like, do you realize like how many cells have been produced by that time? Like our body is constantly producing cells. So, getting a pap smear once a year is what the standard used to be. Because so much can happen in a year. Like we produce millions of cells a year. So doing just a simple pap smear of the cervix and getting a pelvic exam done, like this girl, her illness could have been completely treated from the beginning. If she had been getting a pap smear every year, what would have happened is it would have come back abnormal cells, like squamous cells or whatever they're called. And then they would have done either, I can't remember if it's a laser treatment or they do something to the cervix to basically burn off the first layer. And it doesn't hurt because the cervix, it doesn't have a lot of pain receptors. If you go before the cervix or behind the cervix, yes, it's excruciatingly painful. Like, for example, childbirth. But the surface of the cervix is actually quite sturdy. Like, it's very tough. And the reason for that, again, is because childbirth, that's just how women are naturally built. Well, all they had to do was swab it and then send those cells off to a lab, which is easy peasy. Take a look at the cells, see what they look like. If it's abnormal, then you follow up, I think, in 4 months or 6 months. If they're still abnormal, and they grade them, just like there are different stages of cancer, they grade the cells. They look and see, okay, how far gone is this mutation, basically? Are there cells growing on the surface of the cervix that they shouldn't be growing there? They actually should have been destroyed by the immune system. But see, here's the thing. People don't realize that cells, they have a natural life cycle. So certain cells live a certain amount of time, and then they are supposed to commit cell suicide. Basically, they deactivate themselves, and then the immune system sends out cells, whether T cells, B cells, lymphocytes, whatever the case may be. There's a whole different set of cells within the immune system that they go out and they gobble up all these cells that are supposed to be dying or that have died. And basically, the immune system is basically your kind of like your garbage truck drivers is what it's like. They collect the debris, basically. Well, when you have cells that are over replicating, meaning mutating, they're becoming cancerous. That's what cancer cells are. Cancer cells are cells that did not commit cell suicide. They did not die. So they just kept over replicating, over duplicating, and just uncontrollably. Like they mutate at a way quicker rate than a normal cell. So that's why it's important to do these diagnostic tests and something as simple as a pap smear. So needless to say, this girl needlessly basically got cancer because socialized medicine turned their back on her. And I'll never forget that. And it was really sad. And so she had to spend thousands of dollars to come to the United States to get medical care because Canada would not treat her, which was so cruel. See, that's the lie about socialized medicine. Oh, it's free health care for all. It's not free. It's taken out of your taxes. It's taken out of your taxes. So the more people you have on the so-called free healthcare system, the more taxes are taken out of your paycheck. Here's the other problem with that. With socialized medicine, it only wants to spend money on the healthy. Well, guess what? Medicine is not for the healthy. Medicine is typically for people that have an illness. And there's also preventative medicine. We'll see under socialized medicine, they limit preventative medicine hoping that either A, you won't get sick, or B, you'll just die off and then they won't have to spend money on you. And you're probably thinking, well, why would any system do that? Greed. Greed. You have all these medical bureaucrats that whether they have an MD or PhD or a DO or whatever the case may be, or these administrators, we talked about that horrible, evil title in a previous podcast about administrators. These people are evil, wicked people because they love money just like anybody else, and they get paid a lot of money to be professional paper pushers and basically to let people die. When you're talking about healthcare and insurance companies and Medicare, Medicaid, things like that, especially in socialized medicine. So what happens is within socialized medicine, you have people that are put in charge of your healthcare, even though you're the one paying for it. And then they dictate to you, oh, well, this study came out, so you really don't need to be tested for that. Actually, you do need to be tested because science doesn't lie. See, here's the thing. They use science against people when we are supposed to be using science for the betterment of people, not for limiting people, not for the death of people. And a good example of not getting adequate health care in a timely manner was this one girl. She was kind of an English hick. She was over in England. She was on a reality TV show, and I can't remember her name, but she got diagnosed with cancer as a young woman as well in her 20s, and she died from it. When here's the thing, all of those cancers are preventable and they are easily detectable. Like if you catch them in like stage 0 or stage 1, maybe even stage 2, it's completely avoidable. Like all you do is you get treatment and it's done, it's over with, and you don't have to worry about it again. But if you let it go too far too long, that's when you have these really bad problems and then these people die. So I remember seeing that story. And I just thought, wow, I wish more people would open their eyes to the dangers of socialized medicine. You know, the only thing that socialized medicine wants to pay for is birth control, abortions, and antibiotics. Pretty much everything else it doesn't want to pay for. Why? Because it costs money. And, you know, it's kind of like socialized medicine is great if it's not great ever, but it's better for people that are young and never get sick. Well, what happens when you start to age? You need better health care. You need to do more preventative screening to catch stuff earlier. But you see, here's what socialized medicine does. They get these administrators, quote unquote, these professional medical bureaucrats. Some of them might be MDs, which I'm sorry, if you're a doctor and you think it's okay to let someone die, you're evil. You should go to jail. You should go to prison for that. Because that's manslaughter. And if you're being horrible to your patients, you should go to jail. It may not be manslaughter, but it's pretty close to it. But no one calls these people out on it. No one calls them out on it. And it's really sad because they should be called out on it because they're getting paid with your tax dollars, whether you live in Canada or the United States. So whenever someone works in a government job, they're getting paid out of your paycheck, what you earn. So technically they work for you. You are their boss. This whole allowing the government to be in charge of all medical care, that is creepy. And it used to never be like that. But I think England, they became socialized medicine, I think, in the 50s or 60s. And then I think Australia, they started having socialized medicine in the 80s or 90s. And I'm shocked that Australia would ever do that. I'm just like, why would anybody vote for that and allow that? Because guess what? Australia is having a lot of problems with that. There are a lot of people dying in Australia because their government does not want to pay for life-saving treatment. So you're probably wondering, what is this woman talking about? Why is she bringing this up? Okay, I bring this up because when you have organizations, whether they're labor unions, trade unions, or professional organizations, whatever the case may be, whenever you are aligning yourself with another country that doesn't value human life the same way that you do, you can't really trust them. You can't trust them. Because you don't see human life as valuable in the same way. You're not equal. There's inequality between you. So, I'm of the mindset, I read from my Bible and I am a Christian woman. And, I love it when it says in Proverbs, and I think also in the Book of Wisdom, that you need to be careful who you make friends with. Because a friend, a faithful friend, it says, is a sturdy shelter. He who finds one finds a treasure. Well, if you're making friends with people that think it's okay to limit someone else's health care, what do you think they're going to think of you if ever you get sick? I've learned that the number one people I do not get along well with or that are difficult to work with are people that don't value human life. And these are typically crazy liberals, people that are pro-choice, like to the extreme, they're pro-abortion. What's the other thing that they're for? Oh, well, they're for eugenics, like on a massive scale, which is very evil, very wicked, because we know the Nazis did that. That's really horrible and graphic. I've learned that when people are communist or fascist, we just don't see eye to eye, because like even in China, communist China, they either still have the one-child law or you now can have 2 children. Well, if you think about that, how do they limit population? Well, they sterilize their women. They force them to get sterilized. And if you have too many children, if they find out you're pregnant, they have the police round you up and they force you to go to an abortion clinic and they force you to get an abortion. And then they sterilize you right there on the table. See, here's the thing. If you don't agree with that, you shouldn't be doing business with someone like that. It's the same thing here, like with this particular organization, which we've seen multiple unions and organizations that they are, quote unquote, an international union. But the United States and Canada, we are nothing alike, and I'm so grateful for that. I mean, Canada is a beautiful place, they have wonderful people, but in terms of their social structure and their government, I don't agree with any of it. I don't agree with any of it. because they're not truly free. They live a lie thinking they have free medical care. It's not free. It costs money. I mean, it's like a whiny little kid. It's a spoiled, rotten little kid that thinks everything is free from his parents. Well, his parents had to work hard for that toy or that car or that bike. But when people think about socialized medicine, like, oh, free universal health care, it is not free. It costs money. Why don't you take a look at your hospital bill? Somebody has to pay for that. And it's not right to put that ticket or the total of that tab on somebody else. It's not right to do that. There are way better ways to make things affordable. Another thing with Canada, it's not truly free. They're not really a democracy. They have socialized medicine. They're socialist. And they don't get it. They don't get it. I don't know how else to describe it, but how do I word this? For some reason, and I went to college with some people that were from these socialized countries, they come to the United States for a quote-unquote better education, but I'm like, think about that. You had to come to the United States to get a quote-unquote better education. So that tells me you think and you know your schools suck. But they won't admit that. It's like, well, here's the thing. If you know your schools suck, then your country sucks. Because your country is socialist. See, socialists, they like to control information. People may not realize that, but they are actually for suppressing the truth. Because socialists really love to believe in causes and agendas. Whereas when you believe in human rights and in freedom and democracy and true liberty, all these causes and agendas, you don't need them because everybody's equal. Everybody has rights. Everybody has true freedom. But these causes and agendas cause division and strife. And then we wonder why we have all these problems. And again, you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with this? Here's the thing. When you're doing business with someone, you have to really think about where are they coming from? What mindset do they have? Are they for me? Are they against me? Are they indifferent? Can they handle tough times, bad times, good times? Are they only there when the money's flowing in? See, because here's the thing. Socialists, they use people for money, especially socialist governments. They use their own citizens for money. So that's why I always get very cautious whenever I see a quote-unquote international union. Because the United States is still number one, and thank goodness. Like, you know what I find interesting is when other countries put down the United States, and I'm like, okay, hold that phone. Back up your train out of our station here. Let me show you the truth here. You little socialist, you fascist, you little communist. If it wasn't for the United States, the outcome of World War I, World War II, and all these other wars would have been completely different. And you would have chaos if the United States was not around and if we were not number one. Because we are the only country on this planet to really have true freedom. And the problem right now in our country is we have some crazy liberal nutbags that are trying to rip up our Constitution, bully all the conservative states or even the moderate states in the United States. And they're trying to squash people's rights and take their rights away and limit them. And make it seem like the government knows everything. Since when does the government know everything? I think we learned from President Carter and President Obama, that the government fails at so many things and horribly, so it should not be in charge of hardly anything, because it's not its job to run the country. We, the citizens, run the country. I can't tell you how many people I meet from other countries that come here to the United States and they're like, please don't change. Please don't become like our country, wherever they're from. Like, you do not understand how much freedom you have here. You do not want communism. You do not want fascism. You do not want socialism. You do not want Sharia law. They'll tell you straight up. So whenever people vote for these crazy liberals, and you know what? I love Democrats. I even love some liberals. But when they're just too far out there, I'm just like, man, like, if you're not happy with the United States, you're free to leave. And you know what's interesting? Is that in a lot of these other countries that complain and kind of pick on the United States and say we're a bad country, guess what? They have stripped their citizens of so many of their rights that it is almost impossible for their citizens to leave their country. That is sad. So they don't have freedom of movement. Well, we saw that in the USSR and the Soviet Union. It was a closed, secret society. And it was brutal to its own people. See, that's the thing. These causes, regimes, and agendas, they claim to care about people. They appeal to the masses, right? They appeal to the common everyday man, which would be you and me, thinking that we're going to fall for their lies. Because what they do is they just hit on a hot topic, a hot button. And then that's how they hook you. And they say, oh, yeah, you're oppressed. You're oppressed. You should join our cause. You should join our group. We'll help you with that. See, here's the thing. You shouldn't have to join a cause in order for your voice to be heard, because just by the very fact that you are a citizen of the United States, your voice is already equal to everybody else's. So you don't have to join a certain group just to be valuable or just to be valued as a person. You already have value. That's where these labor unions and trade unions and some of these professional organizations get extremely off track. Because really all they're wanting to do is to get numbers, membership. Because they know if they can get a bunch of people in their union, first of all, they have way more money. And then secondly, they have way more lobbying power. And number three, they have an easier way of manipulating our legislation at a state level and a federal level. And that's where I get concerned, because again, when you're dealing with an international union, you're dealing with other countries, their labor laws, their constitutions, their rate of pay, their taxes, their exports, their imports. I mean, it's a whole different ball game. Like, I don't understand why these unions join with other countries like this. I love Canada. There are things about Canada that I love, and I've met some Canadians that are absolutely wonderful. But we're not the same. We are unique. See, whenever you have these unions aligning with themselves with other countries, they're trying to create that false ideology of utopia for all. Utopias do not exist. They never have and they never will. That doesn't mean we can't strive for common ground. That doesn't mean we can't strive for peace and unity. Those are great things to have. But what I find very interesting is that whenever you have these organizations that join with other countries like this, we tend to lose our individuality. And it's almost always the United States that gets shamed and blamed. Why? Because we have it great here. We make way more money than the majority of the planet. We have way more freedoms than the majority of the planet. That's why the rest of the planet pretty much is jealous of the United States. So recognize when you're dealing with someone who's envious of you, is my point. There is greed everywhere on the face of this earth. It is not just in Wall Street. In fact, most of the greed on this planet is not in Wall Street. It's elsewhere, in places that we never think to look or acknowledge. And I'm saying this from an accounting point of view and from an auditor point of view. Because it's the places where people are not looking. That's where you're going to find most of the problems. And that's where you're going to find a lot of shadiness. I mean, just think about how regulated and overregulated our banks are and Wall Street is. They're overregulated. And right now in the United States, I mean, I've seen some videos online about this. I hope it's not true, but I can kind of tell that it is. We're dealing with inflation right now in the United States. And it's hell. Look at the price of milk, bread, and gasoline. Basic necessities of life. Basic. That is unacceptable. I mean, it's like we're experiencing Jimmy Carter Part 2. I don't remember inflation being this bad during Obama's years. I mean, I could be wrong. I just remember that he did a lot of funky stuff. And he was just kind of used as a puppet for all the secret crazy liberals in Washington. I mean, he was just kind of young and dumb. Very much so. He was completely incompetent for the job. Obama was. And so was Jimmy Carter, but especially Obama. But sadly, he was elected, but it's like, well, you know, believe me, I pray for my leaders. Whoever is president of the United States, I pray for them. It doesn't matter whether I like them or not. I pray for them. I pray for their safety. I pray that they make good decisions and that they help the United States first, not other countries. We are not responsible for other countries and other citizens. We are not. That's not what we're here for. The United States was not founded to be a personal piggy bank for everybody else. You know, maybe some people, you know, if they don't like the United States, you need to read about the history of the United States. You need to watch some documentaries, and good documentaries, not these crappy ones, excuse my language. You need to watch the good ones that are realistic, that are not jaded, that are not slanted towards conservative or liberal. Either way, it's just right down the middle. This is the truth. This is the founding of this country. These are the people that helped to found it. Like, you know, people forget how to look at things from a historical point of view. Historical points of view are supposed to be unbiased. Because you know, when you're dealing with historical data, you can't argue whether or not something happened or not because you know it happened. It's kind of like, you know, let's say, for example, you and I go to Taco Bell to have lunch. So we go to Taco Bell. Then someone 3 years later says, well, I don't think you really did go to Taco Bell with so-and-so. And it's like, yeah, we did. No, I'm just going to deny the fact that ever happened because I'm biased. No one says it like that, but that's really what it is. You didn't really go to Taco Bell, so I'm not going to believe it. Well, it doesn't matter what you believe. Me and this individual really did go to Taco Bell and had a nice lunch. And here's the thing. Let's say I still have the receipt 3 years later, which of course I would not. But I'd be like, okay, here's the receipt. If you're the type of person to deny historical data and to deny history, you're the type of person to look at that receipt and go, no, it didn't happen. And you just look, and I would just look at you and be like, are you crazy? This actually did happen. Me and this individual really did go to Taco Bell and have a nice lunch. I even remember what combo I got. I usually get, 3 soft beef tacos, not the supreme, because it's too much sour cream, even though I love sour cream. I usually get 3 soft tacos and a large Dr. Pepper. That's the combo I get. Almost every single time. And if I don't do the combo, I usually get 1 soft beef taco and 1 bean burrito and a small Dr. Pepper. I'm very much creature of habit with that. But my point is this. If people don't like the United States, you need to leave. You need to find another country to go live in. Because what really sucks for people that love the United States, which includes myself, is when people stay here and ruin it for the rest of us. It's like you're ruining someone else's birthday party. It's like if you don't want to help celebrate someone's birthday, then don't show up to the party and don't complain about the gift that you bought them, if you even bought them a gift. Like, I think some people need to read Miss Manners or Dear Abby about how to behave appropriately. Because I think that applies to so many things in life. You know, not only where we live, where we work, and how we vote. Because I look at it this way. If ever I moved to Canada, which I wouldn't be opposed to that, because they do have some good companies up there, and I know some good people up there, but if ever I moved to Canada, I would know going in, hey, it's a socialized country. They have socialized medicine. I'm probably not going to like every little thing, but I will find something to like. I will find something to enjoy, and I will be grateful for the opportunity to move there and work there. And I'm not going to use it as an opportunity to just browbeat people about their socialism. It's like, well, if someone wants to know the truth, they can ask me about it. Or they can research it on their own. But unfortunately, we have people here in the United States that like to bully other people. You're going to believe what I want you to believe. And it's like, no, that's not the American way. We have freedom here. We have liberty here. And unfortunately, when you're dealing with international unions, you lose more and more of your liberty over time. Because again, you are aligning yourself with a foreign entity. Like, I don't know why other countries would want to ally themselves with us. If they don't like our democracy, they don't like our system, but they love our money. That's why they align themselves with us. It's because they want our money. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, whenever I hear, like, Canadian comedians, which most of them are awful, they're not really that good, they almost always say something horrible about the United States, even though most of their viewers are Americans. Especially if they're at an American venue. I'm like, really? So you basically just slap the face of all the Americans in the crowd. This is why we still think your country sucks. Because it does. Any country that limits its citizens' health care in any way is evil and wicked. And it's shameful. But you know what's sad? Is the Canadian people, they keep voting in a socialist. They keep voting in bad people. It's like, well, it's like, that saying, you get what you pay for? Well, you get what you vote for. And I feel sorry for the Canadians that can't stand socialism. I feel sorry for them. I truly do. Truly, truly feel sorry for them. So, but needless to say, when we're talking about international unions, red flags should always go up in our mind immediately. Because Canada especially has a lot of problems right now. So here's the thing, whenever their country has problems, it typically tends to affect the United States in more ways than we realize. Because number one, they are our neighbor. Number two, we have a lot of unions that do way too much business with them. That's very concerning. And number three, a lot of Canadians are still coming to the United States to get health care. So that tells me if your citizens are having to leave your country to go elsewhere because of problems, that tells me literally you have a problem. That may sound extremely simple, but it is that simple. But let's go ahead and move on into this one. It says the Glass Molders, Pottery, Plastics, and Allied Workers International Union is a labor union which represents about 28,000 craft and industrial workers, primarily in the ceramics, china, craft metals, fiberglass, glass, insulation, and pottery industries. It is one of the oldest unions in the United States, with its first locals formed in 1842. And it talks a little bit about its history. It says in 1842, craftsmen in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, formed a glass blowers union that represented workers throughout the region. John Samuels was elected the first president. Several other local glass blowers unions joined the National Union, which adopted the name Glass Blowers League. The union represented workers who made soda lime glass or green glass. The new National Union slowly disintegrated over the following quarter century, but glass blowers met again in 1866 and affirmed their affiliation to the Glass Blowers League and its 1842 Constitution. The reinvigorated union also changed its name to the Druggist Wear Glass Blowers League, that's interesting, Oh, that might be because, I'm just guessing, but we forget that way back in the day, prescription bottles were made out of glass, not plastic. It says membership was largely centered in the states of New Jersey and Pennsylvania, then the center of the glass industry in the United States. The glass blowers faced a major challenge in the 1880s from a new union, the American Flint Glass Workers Union of North America, AFGWU. Flint glass, commonly known as crystal, was made in closed pots to protect the glass from impurities, unlike green glass. And generally, the flint glass workforce was more highly skilled. We got some competition. Okay. The AFGWU formed in Pittsburgh in 1878, and within 4 short years had locals throughout West Virginia and Ohio and was spreading east. Feeling threatened by the new union, the glass blowers waged several bitter jurisdictional strikes against the AFGWU in the 1880s and 1890s. I'm not surprised. We've got some turf wars going on here. The union's jurisdictional fight was an important one. Highly skilled workers like glass blowers made up 15% of the entire workforce, while 45% of American workers made just enough money in the 1880s to be at or above the poverty line, which was, at that time was $500 a year. Another 30% made less than that. That's sad. A shocking 10% of all full-time workers made so little money they were considered absolutely destitute. Glass blowers, however, made 60 to 100% more than the average worker and were considered the cream of the working class, so they don't have much to complain about. It says the union was also confronting a diversifying glass industry. So here's another thing. A lot of these unions, they don't like change. Well, change happens, get over it, suck it up. So this is one of those things. So they're having jurisdictional battles. This is a trade battle, basically, because the industry is changing. Newer glass works tended to be better capitalized and paid workers better. Distinct differences between glass works in the East and West emerged, and the union created an Eastern and Western division in 1884 to accommodate these industry changes. The Eastern Division of the Druggist Ware Glass Blowers League dissolved in 1886 and joined District 149 of the Knights of Labor, KOL, while the Western Division dissolved in 1889 and joined KOL District 143. An independent union of glass blowers, the Western Green League, formed in western Pennsylvania around 1880 but merged with the Knights of Labor in 1886 as well. Child labor and apprenticeships were major issues for the union in the 1880s as well. 1 in 4 workers in the green glass industry was a child. Now that may sound shocking to us, but see, here's the thing. People needed money. The way we view childhood today is actually quite new and rare. Most kids did not go to school back during this time. And this was like all over the world. Like a lot of children did not go to school. They worked. Everybody in the family worked. So whenever you had these child labor laws that took place, the family income drastically dipped down. Like it was drastically decreased. Now I'm not for child labor, not by any means. But we need to be careful about how we view things in regards to child labor and things like that, because it was a different time. Because children being allowed to be children and having fun and playing at the park, that's a relatively new phenomenon in terms of society and in terms of the human race. So just know that going in, okay? Apprenticeships in the green glass factories lasted 4 years, but the apprentice system was operated by the employers, who took on large numbers of apprentices in order to flood the market with skilled workers and thus put a downward pressure on wages. That's not true. Okay, here's the thing. Employers, they want more skilled workers. They want more people to be skilled. Not so they can drain people of their wages or put pressure on their wages. It's because they know that if there are more people that are skilled labor, then you increase the quality of your goods and your products. So this is kind of jaded here. That some people may believe that to be true, what was just said in that sentence, but that's not true. If it were true, then why would employers today, a lot of them, want to require that you go to college? It's because you're more educated and you're actually worth more in your labor. You're not worth less, you're actually worth more. After the merger with the Knights of Labor in 1886, the Glass Workers Union struck to win control over the apprenticeship system. The Eastern District 149 demanded 1 apprentice for every 15 workers, but the Western District 143 accepted 2. The strike lasted into 1887, and the Eastern District 149 glassblowers, angry over the employer-friendly stand taken by the Western District, disaffiliated from the KOL. Employers instituted a lockout against the Eastern workers. At an employer union conference in 1887, a compromise was reached. The union not only won agreement on the apprentice issue, but also an industry-wide agreement setting uniform wages and work rules. The agreement even listed the physical movements all workers would be expected to do. That's kind of different, but it's a different time back then. In 1891, after 4 years of labor unrest, the 2 KOL glassblowers divisions merged to become the United Green Glass Workers Association of the United States and Canada. So right there, we're already aligning ourselves with Canada when we should not be doing that. That's just wrong. The glassblowers disaffiliated from the KOL in 1895 and formed a new independent union, the Glass Bottle Blowers Association, GBBA, of the United States and Canada. Dennis A. Hayes was elected the new union's president in 1896, a position he held for the next 3 decades. That's a problem right there, because that's like a little mini dictatorship. He may have been a good person, I don't know, but 3 decades, that's a problem. Imagine having a president be president for 3 decades in the United States. It's not right to do that. We need to have a change of power, because that's how you help your country and your business to grow. The GBBA affiliated with the American Federation of Labor, AFL, in 1899. Then it says the GBBA struck the glass-blowing industry in a lengthy strike from April 8, 1899 to July 1, 1900 that led to the unionization of all but 2 glass plants. That's kind of sad. By 1900, the GBBA had 61 local unions and 4,300 members. The GBBA, with the consent of the American Flint Glass Workers Union, AFGW, affiliated the Prescription Glass Blowers Department of the AFGW. In 1906, one scholar of trade union activity noted that the GBBA tended to hold regional and national strikes. Well, that's probably a given. And only rarely struck individual employers. I don't know about that. If they're willing to strike anywhere, that's just kind of what they do. Disputes with the AFGW did not end, however. Mechanization tended to eliminate the skill differences between flint glass and green glass workers, and the 2 unions clashed repeatedly over who should represent glass industry workers. Bottle and fruit jar manufacturing had long been green glass work, but now the 2 unions entered into a bitter dispute over who should represent workers in this section of the industry. So another turf battle. When the American Federation of Labor, AFL, ruled in favor of the GBBA, the AFGW disaffiliated from the AFL on January 30th, 1903. Why am I not surprised? They get their feelings hurt, they disaffiliate. It's kind of like they come, they go, they come, they go. It's just they get their feelings hurt. As an independent union, the AFGW tried to organize these workers but lacked the support and protection which the National Trade Union Center gave the GBBA. The AFGW re-affiliated with AFL October 21st, 1912, after renouncing its claims to bottle and fruit jar workers. So it's just more turf battles. Way more turf battles. So then it talks a little bit about prohibition. It says World War I proved to be a boon, or maybe a boon, I don't know what that word is, for the Union. Immigration from Europe to the United States almost came to a stop, eliminating a major source of cheap labor. Additionally, major production increases necessitated by the war effort led to significant wage increases, extensive overtime, and many new hires. But adoption of the 18th Amendment and passage of the Volstead Act led to nationwide prohibition in 1920. The need for glass dropped drastically, leading to major membership losses and wage decreases. Here's the thing, though. If their industry had actually been safe and secure in terms of economy driven, then it wouldn't matter if there was prohibition or not. And if anything, I think it shows how weak your industry is if a new law is passed and it's proving difficult to stay afloat. See, because here's the thing. almost everything that was bottled back then was bottled in glass jars or glass bottles. So just the fact that there's less alcohol should not prove to destroy an industry, because everything else is being bottled in glass. So it just kind of tells me they really don't know how to up their game, and they don't know how to, go into the future and, push forward into the future and lead in their industry. Because if you're already strong in your industry, then it shouldn't matter what laws are passed. It shouldn't matter if there's changes in the industry. If your work is good and true and you're keeping up with the times, as they say, then you should be able to keep afloat. But obviously they did not like this. So then, let's see here. It talks a little bit about their presidents. I'll skip down to this. It says here, presidents of the Union. So it goes back to Samuel Simpson. He was president from 1876 to 1880. And then there's Lewis Arrington, Joseph D. Troth, Dennis A. Hayes, John A. Voll, James Maloney, Lee Minton, Newton W. Black, Harry A. Tooley, James E. Hatfield, Frank W. Carter, James H. Rankin. Well, that's interesting. He was president from 1997 to 2004. Okay. John P. Ryan, and then Bruce Smith. So that is very interesting there. So interesting union. And I skipped over some of the jurisdictional battles and things like that, because it's just them having tiffs. It's just continuous tiffs. And, there's a little information about consolidations and things like that in the 70s and 80s. I would expect that to happen in the 70s and 80s, especially within the United States, because our industry changed a lot in terms of our economy and our labor force, because we have more and more women going into the workforce in the 70s. And then come the 80s, it's more kind of established and more seen as normal for women to be in the workforce. And women, they're still having to fight for equal pay and to be taken seriously, but it's not as bad as in the 70s. Because I remember when my mom told me that when she went to go interview for a job, she went into the waiting room and you're waiting with all these other candidates, and she was one of the few women. I think it was like her and this other woman, and everybody else was a man for this job. And she knew she was not going to get the job because she wasn't a man. I don't even know if she stayed and interviewed. I don't know. I don't remember that part of the story. But I just remember thinking, what kind of crap, excuse my language, what kind of harsh realities my mother went through in the 70s, dealing with discrimination and people not wanting to hire her. This was also a big problem. They didn't want to hire her because she's a woman. And they didn't want to hire her because she was a young woman, meaning she was of childbearing age, because they didn't want to hire someone that was going to have a baby. It's kind of like a woman could never win. She goes to college, gets a degree. She applies for a job that she's obviously qualified for. But it's like, well, we're not going to hire you because you're a woman. But then if they do want to hire you, it's like, well, if you're married, if you're single, we'll hire you. But if you're married, then you're more likely to have a kid, and we don't want to deal with that. We don't want to deal with you and your ovaries and your uterus. That's what it was like back then. And it was horrible. And it made it very difficult for women to find good paying jobs that could help them with their career, because they are worthy of a career. But back during those days, especially in the 70s and back, it's like only men have careers. And it's like, no, I think a lot of people forget about women that have owned companies going back several years. An example of a woman that owned a company is Estee Lauder, the makeup company. She started her own makeup company. She is an amazing woman. I mean, she has since passed away, and her company has kind of gotten off track. But Estee Lauder, they own Clinique, MAC, and some other companies. But she did amazing things. I mean, she put up with a lot from people. Because both men and women thought her place was in the home, but especially men. And she didn't put up with that. And thank goodness for that, because just think about all the wonderful products that she invented. And just think about all the people that she employed and that her family still employs. Like, it's thousands of people. Like, she provides jobs for people. Even though she has since passed away, let me look her up. I'm trying to remember when she passed away. Amazing woman. Just amazing. And just wonderful products. Let me read about her. Okay, let's see here. It says here, the company began in 1946 when Estee Lauder and her husband, Joseph Lauder, began producing cosmetics in New York City. They first carried only 4 products: cleansing oil, skin lotion, super rich all-purpose cream, and cream pack. 2 years later, in 1948, they established their first department store account with Saks Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. Do you realize how amazing that is for a woman to do that? That is amazing. And God bless her husband. He believed in her. He believed in her and supported her. And look at it this way. Let's see here. They are on the New York Stock Exchange now. They've been around like 76 years or so. Founded in New York City. Let's see here. Da-da-da. They have skincare, makeup, and fragrance. Oh, and get this. Guess what their revenue was for 2020? You will not believe this. $14.29 billion. And guess how many employees they have? Oh, that was as of 2020, excuse me. As of 2020, their revenue for 2020 was $14.29 billion. As of 2020, they had 48,000 employees. 48,000 people worked for Estee Lauder. That is amazing. And just think about, if Estee Lauder, if she had never had an idea, I mean, just, how do I word this? Let me put it this way. Women are capable of so much more than just being breeding machines. I mean, yes, it's beautiful for a woman to get pregnant, have a child, have a baby, have a family. That's great, but women are so much more than that. They think and do so much more. They have so many ideas. And that's not to downplay men by any means. Men and women both have God-given talent. But women, sometimes we get treated like dogs, regardless of whether we are working as a receptionist or working in retail or sales or whatever the case may be. It's like, oh, you're a woman, you must not have a brain. Oh, I guarantee you Estee Lauder had a brain. And her husband believed in her. I think more husbands should believe in their wives. Because I think if more men actually believed in their wives, they would see amazing things happen in their marriage, and their marriage would actually improve. Because look at it this way, how would you like being married to someone that doesn't believe in you and just puts you down all the time? And doesn't think you're capable of doing much because of your situation, or because of what sex you are, or what you've been through, or just these stupid preconceived notions that have nothing to do with the current moment. So I challenge you. If you're married and you're a guy, I challenge you to love and respect your wife like you have never done before, and believe in her. And ask her, hey, if you could own a company or you could invent something, what would you do? And just ask her. She'll tell you. Women know this stuff. We think of stuff all the time. And if anything, I bet you'll be impressed with your wife. And you'll go, wow, she really knows her stuff at this. Or, wow, I never knew my wife wanted to do that. And here's the thing. If you really love and care about your wife, you might even want to invest in her idea. And I'm not saying that if you don't invest in her idea that you don't love her. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that when you believe in somebody and you see their vision, you want to help them. Because I'll put it this way, women help their husbands all the time. I don't know how else to describe it, but women, we're kind of like the constant cheerleader sometimes. And sometimes it would be nice to be cheered on ourselves. It would be nice to be given positive feedback from our significant other. Because just think about it, if Estee Lauder did not have a kind husband, do you think she would have gone as far as she did? I don't know. I don't think so personally. And I certainly don't think that they would be making $14.29 billion a year in revenue if her husband had not said, hey, I think that's a great idea, let's do this. Like, she created a lot of this stuff in her house, in her kitchen. But see, here's the thing, a lot of men, they think, women just love makeup. No, they love a lot more other things, but, makeup, look at it this way. Makeup is making the Estee Lauder family $14.29 billion a year. That's their revenue. So next time your wife is putting on her makeup, why don't you think about how much money you could be making if you supported her in an idea that she has? If it's a doable and good idea. And I encourage you, if ever your wife is going to the store called Ulta. Ulta is a makeup and cosmetic store, and they also have skincare and shampoo and conditioner. Go with your wife and just look around the store, because I know men don't like to shop with women anyway, but you should, because you'll learn a lot about your significant other. You will learn a lot about your wife, and you'll pick up on things that she likes, so then you will know what to get her for Christmas, Valentine's Day, anniversary, and her birthday. You just got to open your eyes, that's all. Just be open to what it is. But next time your wife goes to Ulta, go with her to Ulta. Look at all the cosmetic brands, look at all the names. And then I encourage you, look up those company names online, just do one a week. Just look up one a week. I think there's one makeup brand called Urban Decay. Amazing makeup brand. I love their eyeliners. I wish they stayed on better. But maybe, it's just because my eyes water sometimes. But anyway, all those companies make a lot of money. And they employ thousands of people. Thousands. So that means they are providing job opportunities for other people, these cosmetic companies. They're providing revenue, but also they're providing health insurance, benefit packages. So just because your wife has an entire drawer or a cabinet or whatever full of makeup and cosmetics, and you just look at it and go, oh, she's wasting so much money. No, she's not. She's actually helping to keep this economy in this country afloat by investing in herself. And here's the thing. Men often complain about women not wearing makeup. And I'm like, really? So you complain about her buying makeup, but then you don't like it when she doesn't wear makeup. It's like, make up your mind. And if you're not one of those guys, God bless you. If you're one of those guys that loves your wife, regardless of whether she wears makeup or not, because she's already beautiful, then God bless you. You are a sweetheart. And your wife is totally lucky to have you. That's wonderful. God bless you. But if you're one of these, I sigh. If you're one of these guys that's like the woman can't hardly do anything right, I'm speaking to you. And one of my eyebrows has gone up, and I feel like I need Botox now. See, because here's the thing. You go and spend money on your cars, your motorcycles, your hobbies that cost way more than a tube of makeup, that cost way more than an eyeshadow. You spend way more money on a fishing pole or a fishing trip than your wife does on a repair serum. And you're probably wondering, what is a repair serum? Well, since you asked, a repair serum is what you put on after you wash your face, but before you put on your moisturizer. It actually sinks into the skin, and it helps your skin to absorb moisture. It helps to repair the skin. It's almost like a painting. Like when an artist is priming their canvas, that's what a repair serum does. It's priming the skin, to be able to absorb the moisturizer, and it's also prepping the skin for when your wife puts on her foundation, whether it's liquid or powder. So there is a process. So look at it this way. When your wife is using all these cosmetics and or skincare, it's no different than you knowing what kind of oil or what kind of parts to put in your truck or your vehicle. It's the same thing. Like you know what kind of oil you cannot put in your vehicle. You know, let's say, for example, your vehicle requires 89 octane, but yet you accidentally put in 85 or 87 or whatever. You know your vehicle is going to be feeling it, right? Men and women have different interests. So you're probably thinking, Lesley, why are you bringing this up? Here's why. Everybody has hopes and dreams. Everybody. And those hopes and dreams are there for you that God put in your heart so that you can be successful. Did you know that every single one of us can be millionaires and billionaires? Every single one of us. And you're going, no way. I say yes way. Here's how I know it's true. Because every single one of us has likes and dislikes, right? Okay? You need to go with what you like. What you enjoy in terms of your career and what you want to do with your life, because when you do what you like, what you enjoy, then it doesn't feel like work. And if it doesn't feel like work, it doesn't feel like labor. And you will make so much more money because you're doing what you know and what you like what you enjoy. It's the same thing with Estee Lauder. And her husband knew that about her. He knew that she knew her stuff. With makeup, with skincare, with perfume. She would make this stuff in her kitchen. So he acknowledged the fact that, hey, my wife knows her stuff and, hey, this might be a good business opportunity. As people, we often long for fellowship. I think we can both agree on that. Everybody longs for fellowship and community. One of the ways that you have fellowship and community is to support your spouse. Talk about your hopes and your dreams. And even if it sounds crazy, look at it from a black and white, yes and no kind of thing. Look at, okay, well, if we were to do that idea you have, how much would it cost? Let's research it. I have an idea for you. If your spouse has an idea, why not use that as an opportunity to go to dinner and have like a date night and just talk about it? Kind of have a brainstorm. Don't bring your kids with you. Have somebody babysit your kids. See, because here's the thing. If you have children, more than likely you've made all about the kids. It's all about the kids. Guess what? It's not all about the kids. It's about the family unit as a whole. I've noticed in the United States, at least, we make it way too much. Oh, we got to do it for the kids. Well, I'm sorry. If all you're ever doing it for is for the kids, does that mean when they reach 18 that they are no longer valuable and important? Because that's what it feels like as an adult. Whenever I hear people say, oh, we got to do it for the kids, I'm like, no, we do this for people, regardless of their age, because we love people. We value all life, not just some life, but all life. No more divisions, people, no more divisions. We are all equal here. So if you're married, and I really want you to do this experiment, I really want you to talk to your spouse. If you're a man, talk to your wife. If you're a woman, talk to your husband. And just ask them, hey, if you could do anything and have your own business, what would you want to do? And even if it sounds crazy, nutty, unrealistic, impossible, guess what? The crazier and more impossible it is, the more fun it's going to be. The more of an adventure you're going to have. And what an accomplishment it will be to take on that challenge and to be successful. So what I would do is I would ask my husband, what has he always wanted to do? And then I'd ask him, hey, do you want to go to dinner? Just you and me, no kids? And just talk about that, brainstorm about it. I really want to hear more about your idea. Even if I don't agree with it, because there might be something that I'm missing. Right? Just because I don't see the vision doesn't mean I can't awaken to it, right? So then you can use it as a date night, and then you will learn so much about each other, and you'll get to be alone with each other. So number one, it will strengthen your marriage. It will strengthen your relationship. You get a date night without the kids. And the kids don't care. They're not going to be like, oh, mommy and daddy went to Chili's or somewhere. without us. No, they could care less. Just send them over to some friend's house or something. Or have your friend send them to an amusement park or something. Like just, kids are kids. They're very resilient. You know, they don't need to have takeout every night. If anything, that's probably very unhealthy for them. But anyway, you'll have a date night with your spouse, and you'll get to talk about things that you probably never knew about your spouse. And here's another thing, you'll have a business opportunity. That's great. That's great. And then, you know, let's say, for example, it starts out just part-time. That's great. Then it could eventually turn into a multi-million-dollar company. And what's even better is not only do you get to provide for your family, you get to provide for other people because you are employing hundreds, if not thousands of other people. So then you are helping to provide for other people's families. See, if all you ever do is focus on, oh, we got to do this for the kids, guess what? You are narrowing your mindset. You are narrowing your vision. Don't do it for the kids. Do it for yourself. Focus on your hopes and your dreams, because if you never fulfill your hopes and your dreams, what example are you setting for your kids? You're saying that once you have kids, you basically don't amount to anything, which is not true. We are always amounting to something in our lives. So why not amount to something that you actually love and enjoy and appreciate? Here's another thing. When you're doing what you love, you won't be depressed. You won't be sad and miserable. I mean, you might have some stressful moments. That comes along with any job or any industry or any company. But when you know why you're doing something, let me put it this way. When you know the why, and you believe in the why, the stress isn't that bad. Because you believe in yourself and you believe in your future and in your personal opportunity. And then as that grows, you're able to help other people realize their potential. Because we care about people, not just the few. I hope that makes sense, but that's how I look at all of this. Are there things that disappoint me in life? Yes. But I turn those disappointments into positive moments. I don't go, oh, I've got another challenge. Here we go again. No, I say, oh, I've got a challenge. I bet I can totally accomplish this. I can defeat this. I can do really well. You have to really have that go-getter attitude. So again, if you're married and you're listening to this, I think you should learn more about your spouse and have a wonderful evening together. I really do. Without the kids. Because guess what? If the kids are there, you're not really connecting with your spouse at dinner. And I see that all the time, and it breaks my heart, because I'm like, this is why marriages are failing. This is why divorce rates are almost as high as 50% in the United States. It's because couples, they're not being couples anymore, especially when they have kids. Kids are beautiful and wonderful, but they are not the be-all, end-all. Like, you really need to focus on your hopes and your dreams and set the example for your children of what they should be striving for when they become adults. That's what it means to be an adult. You don't sacrifice your future for someone else. You go for it. You achieve what is in your future. So that way you can help lift other people up along the way. I think sometimes we over-sacrifice and then we realize we're miserable and then we're not going where we need to be going. And it really is our own fault when we do things like that. Like just because you're married, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, however old you are, that doesn't mean your life stops. It means it's just beginning at any and every age. I think sometimes we think of marriage as, oh, well, I'm going to get married, settle down, not really strive for as much. No! Don't do that. Strive for something new every year. I think that would be great. Because it feels good to accomplish things. And we should be accomplishing things. Because number one, that's what God wants for us. And number two, that's what the people in our lives should want for us. And number three, that's what our country wants for us. We should be accomplishing things. That's just part of being human. Is to want to be successful. You have that drive to do the impossible. That's great. Just because something looks impossible, that doesn't mean that it is. It just means that it has your attention. But anyway, I will go ahead and close this podcast. The next one we will be taking a look at will be, let me go to my list, International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, Moving Picture Technicians, Artists, and Allied Crafts of the United States, its territories, and Canada. That sounds familiar. So we might be doing that one, or the International Association of Bridge, Structural, Ornamental, and Reinforcing Ironworkers. That also sounds familiar. Some of these might be repeats. I will double check my list. I bet the reason why it sounds familiar is because they have merged. That might be why. But anyway, until next time, I pray that you're happy, healthy, and whole, and that you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.